Apple's about to launch the new iPhone 17 Air, and new iPhone 17 Air is supposed to be insanely thin at only 5.5 millimeters thin, which
then anodized for color and durability.
What is so different about the iPhone 17, iPhone Air, and the iPhone 17 Pro Max? This is where the story even gets more interesting. It's September 10 and the whole world is excited. The iPhone 17 is out.
As some of you may know, about 5 months ago, I had a liver transplant. So I now have the liver of a mid-20s person. In 1984, we introduced the Macintosh.
It's September 10 and the whole world is excited because one of the most iconic wonder in a present-day battle for technological dominance, the iPhone 17 is out, and nations are moved as millions, if not billions of people are excited about this recent innovation. Now, the question becomes, everyone is wondering, what difference will the iPhone 17, the Pro Max, and the iPhone Air bring to the market that will enhance customer satisfaction? Now, I want to tell you the reasons why you must watch this video before you buy an iPhone 17. Apple has quickly become one of the giants in the world of telecommunication, surpassing most of its competitors so many years ahead. I believe that Steve Jobs literally saw the future, and before diving into this technological wonder, I believe he had a vision which is being manifested today. You see, Apple doesn't just sell products, Apple sells emotions. And this has given them an advantage over the market for so many years. But how did all this start? For the things I want to tell you right now to make sense, we must go back in history to understand how Apple even produced the iPhone, which I can call a landmark invention. The first iPhone was produced in 2007, and this is 2025, and we have had so many productions of iPhone, which has changed and brought about a technological revolution in our contemporary age. But how did all this start? From a company that was relegated to a garage to becoming a tech giant. But how did all this begin? We must go back into the insane story of the man Steve Jobs. Today, the world hungers for every new release of Apple products, from the iPhones to the iPads to the MacBooks to all of the things that Apple gets to produce. How did a school dropout get to achieve such a dimension of innovation? How did someone who was once at the backside of life, how did he get to emerge into a tech giant that long after his death in 2011, Apple has witnessed great levels of increase in every aspect? Let's dive into the insane story of Steve Jobs. Now, Steve Jobs, the co-founder of Apple, was born in 1955. Of course, he was adopted and grew up in Bergen, Silicon Valley. After dropping out of college and a transformative trip to India, he co-founded Apple with Steve Wozniak. This was in the year 1976, introducing the revolutionary Apple II and the Macintosh with a graphical user interface and mouse. Ousted from Apple in 1985, Jobs then founded the Next Computer and acquired Pixar Animation Studio, leading it to success with Toy Story. He returned to Apple in 1997, revitalizing the company with iconic products like iMac, iPod, and iPhone before his eventual death in 2011, transforming Apple into one of the world's most valuable companies to this date, a multi-billion-dollar enterprise. Steve Jobs was born in 1955 and was adopted by Paul and Clara Jobs, who raised him in the Mountain View area of California. Growing up as a young boy, with his father being a machinist, fostered his interest in mechanics and building things, which was shaped by his environment while he grew in the emerging Silicon Valley. And this is where the deep interest for technology began to rise in this young boy, Steve. Of course, he attended Reed College, but unfortunately, he dropped out, later taking a job at Atari and traveling to India to explore spirituality and Buddhism. This is where the story gets more interesting. In 1976, Jobs meets a man called Steve Wozniak. This began a revolutionary relationship in the world of technology. And with this duo, they got to achieve massive increase and sales and acceptance in the market of technology. This duo achieved massive success with the Apple II, one of the first mass-produced microcomputers in 1977. Now, unlike many other entrepreneurs and people who are into technology, Jobs was different. He saw the commercial potential of graphical user interface, which is called the GUI, and mouse-driven technology in Xeron Auto, leading to the development of the Macintosh computer in 1984. Now, of course, like every other growing organization, there was some power tussle and power clash in Apple. There was a contention for power, and the story soon became sour as Steve Jobs experiences one of the worst times of his life. But thanks to his inclination to spirituality, this did not get a better part of him, as Jobs was forced out of Apple in 1985 due to a power struggle with the then CEO John Sculley and the board of directors, stemming from disagreements from the company's direction, disappointing Macintosh sales, and Jobs' demanding and politically unpopular management style. He was a revolutionary who did not go by the rules, and so this caused some kind of strife in the political landscape of this organization. And so the board sided with Sculley, leading to Jobs losing his operational role and untimely resignation. Now, to understand why Jobs was quickly fired, or should I say forced to resign, you must understand John Sculley was hired to work with Jobs, but a rivalry developed into a power struggle. And so Jobs and Sculley had different visions for Apple as an organization, while Jobs was pushing more for innovation and Sculley was focusing more on the profitability and market focus, even at the expense of the creativity and its potential growth. And also in that same season, Apple witnessed one of its worst time in terms of sales of the Macintosh and Lisa computer models, which were developed on the job. They failed to meet their sales expectation, which strains the company financially and Jobs' relationship with Sculley. Like I earlier said, Jobs was somehow different in his approach towards technology. He wasn't necessarily a scientist as the likes of Albert Einstein, Isaac Newton, but he was a revolutionary, what I call a technological revivalist. And so his approach towards innovation and creativity was somehow different, as Jobs would sometimes have workers to repeat a certain thing again and again until a desired result is achieved. Sometimes his workers will not even have the time to sleep or to rest effectively because of what he wants to achieve. There was something in his mind. He had a vision, and the vision drove him beyond the boundaries. And if you are not going to give him what he wants in terms of creativity, you might as well leave the company. So Jobs was ruthless in terms of his desire to see customers get satisfied and to see Apple move from one level to the other. His temperamental nature, demanding leadership, and the creation of a separate company within a company for the Macintosh team led the complaints from employees and increased friction within the management. In the end, Apple board sided with Sculley and stripped Jobs of his command of the Macintosh groups and effectively forcing his resignation. Of course, because Jobs is a revolutionary and a technological technocrat and a technological revivalist, though he was sidelined from the company which he basically started. After leaving Apple, he took some employees with him and founded Next, a computer platform development company, and Pixar went on to make Toy Story. But in 1977, something very strange happened. You see, the absence of the right leader will always navigate the organization to the wrong place. And sometimes the right leader may have some excesses that if you are unable to look beyond, you would also forsake the dimensions of positivity that rest in them. I'm saying that if you kill a man because of how weak he is, you did not just kill his weakness, you also buried his strength. Now, when Jobs was asked about how he felt about his resignation and departure from Apple, he said he was devastated, but later on he said it was the best thing that ever happened to me. The heaviness of being successful was replaced with the lightness of being a beginner again. Apple bought Next in 1996, bringing Jobs back into the company, and then he became the CEO in 1997 and oversaw the introduction of Color iMac, which dramatically revived Apple's fortunes. Under his guidance, Apple launched highly successful products such as iTunes Store in 2001, the iPod in 2001, the iPhone in 2007, and the iPad in 2010. Of course, the success was about to end, not for the company, of course, but for Steve Jobs, because in 2003, he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer and subsequently took medical leaves of absence.
As some of you may know, about 5 months ago, I had a liver transplant. So I now have the liver of a mid-20s person who died in a car crash. Vertical. I'm back at Apple. loving every day of it, and I'm getting to work with our incredibly talented teams to come up with some great new products for you all in the future. So it's wonderful. Thank you.
In 2005, Stanford's speech, he said, "Remembering that I'll be dead soon is the most important tool I've encountered to help me make big choices in life." He realized that life is short and purpose matters more than anything else. And so consequently, he resigned as CEO of Apple in 2011 but became chairman, and he passed away unfortunately in October 2011 at the age of 56, leaving behind a legacy as a visionary who transformed many industries. Now, what would you say about Steve Jobs? Because we have a mixture of ruthlessness, a man who is strict, a man who had to cause workers to go extra hours just to get the result he wanted, a man who fired some people unnecessarily just because they were unable to meet his expectation of innovation and creativity. Aside being a man who caused some families pain by laying off some workers with what they would call unnecessary expectations, I would say that this is a story of mixed feelings, where at one side we have a man who had a vision that a point will come where every home will have a computer, and a point will come where there shall be the bringing together of all these facilities of music, of images, of calls, of videos in one device, which he got to achieve. A man who was both understandable, a man who had a strange character, also spearheaded one of the greatest revivals in terms of technology our world has ever experienced. These were Steve Jobs' final words. According to his sister, Mona Simpson, who was present at his death, he said, "Oh wow, oh wow, oh wow." Those were the words that came out of the mouth of Steve Jobs. What do you think was happening to him? Here's where the story gets even more interesting. Now, here's the history of iPhones. Apple, of course, announced the release of iPhone 17 at their all-dropping event in September 2025. This is a wonder in technology, but there is a telecommunication that no one has told you about, which I would speak about towards the end of this video, and you're going to choose between the iPhone 17 and this other communication. Of course, this is not a paid video, as I'm doing this on my own accord. It's not sponsored by any company, so thank you. Apple's iPhone is one of the most innovative inventions of the 21st century. To date, over 2.3 billion iPhones have been sold across the world, and it's arguably one of the most revolutionary devices ever created. Within 18 years, spanning from 2007 to 2025, since the first iPhone, it can be easy to get lost thinking about how many iPhone generations there has been. Apple has released so many lines of iPhones in the past years, and every phone comes with a new feature which amazes all Apple users. And there's increasingly a customer satisfaction from the products of Apple. Although some years people are drowned in dissatisfaction as their anticipation was higher than the product released. But I believe that iPhone 17 will be different, or would it be different? Now, this is the compilation of every iPhone ever released in the order of chronology, with the latest phone being the iPhone 17 and the iPhone Air. This is very fascinating, I guess. But how did all this start? In the early 2000s, Apple was already a tech giant. The iPod had changed the way people listened to music, but Steve Jobs wanted more. He believed that the future was in the palm of our hands, a single device that could call, could text, could browse the internet, and store your entire music library. Jobs hated two things about phones of that era. That's number one, tiny buttons and plastic keyboards like BlackBerry. Also, the awkward interfaces with menus buried in menus. His vision was clear. We are going to reinvent the phone and the concept around phone as a technological apparatus. On January 9th, 2007, the iconic first ever public display of the iPhone at the Macworld conference, as Jobs walked on stage and teased the crowd. An iPod, a phone, an internet communicator. Are you getting it? These are not three separate devices. This is one device. This was the technological revolution in telecommunication. A 3.5-inch capacitive touchscreen, no stylus, just your fingers. A sleek design with glass and aluminium. A Safari browser, of course, the real internet, not a watered down version. A visual voicemail, iPod integration, and a simple interface. It wasn't just a phone, it was the beginning of the smartphone era. And from then, we have witnessed evolutions from one iPhone to another iPhone. In 2008, we had the iPhone 3G, fastest internet plus app store. This changed everything. Apps created a whole new economy. iPhone 4 in 2010, retina display, stainless steel, glass design, FaceTime, still considered one of Apple's best designs till date. iPhone 5 2012, taller screen, lightning connector, first truly slim and light design. iPhone 6 and 6 Plus in 2014, Apple enters the big screen race. Apple Pay introduced mobile wallets. iPhone 7 2016, no headphone jack, controversial at the time, but this introduced a new industry trend which many other tech giants will soon follow. iPhone X in 2017, a revolution, no home button. Think about that. Face ID, edge to edge OLED. This design defined the modern iPhone. iPhone 12 2020, the 5G technology plus the MagSafe magnetic accessories. iPhone 14 2022, the satellite SOS life-saving tech plus dynamic island for multitasking. iPhone 15 2023, USB-C and titanium body for Pro models. And then came September 20th 2024, iPhone 16 with an A18 chip, camera control button, advanced cameras, long battery life, iOS 18 and other features. Now every year brings better cameras, stronger processors and AI-driven tools. Of course, there must always be downsides to everything that we are saying in terms of technological satisfaction from the customers. But what is so different about the iPhone 17 and the iPhone Air and the iPhone 17 Pro Max? This is where the story even gets more interesting. Jobs insisted on simplicity, one button, clean design, intuitive use. He cared about the experience more than the spec. Now, as beautiful as the story of iPhone is, we must give credit to the progenitors of the technology called a phone. This device is an old-time technology that even predates the Apple company as a whole. In the 1800s, we witnessed the birth of a phone. As in 1876, a man called Alexander Graham Bell invents the first telephone. It transmitted voice over wires, literally revolutionizing communication as a whole. Early phones were bulky, wooden boxes with cranks and wires. In the early 20th century, phones spread across homes and businesses, but always wired. Operators had to connect calls manually, but by the 1960s, rotary dial phones became more common in homes, in offices, and in institutions. And here is where the mobile phone era actually began. By 1973, a man called Martin Cooper of Motorola made the first mobile phone call. This was a revolution in technology, and the phone was called the Dynatac. Huge, heavy, and very expensive. At the time, it was approximately from $4,000 and getting above, which in today's economy is tens of thousands of dollars in approximation. From 1980s to the 1990s, phones left from bricks to pockets. Mobile phones became smaller, mostly for the rich. Nokia and Motorola, who were the dominators at that time in terms of telecommunication, they had tough and reliable phones which beat the market, and they literally were lords over the market of telecommunication. Text messaging, SMS, became popular in 1990s. Flip phones and the iconic Nokia 3310 defined an era. Long battery, snake game, nearly indestructible. Moving forward to the early 2000s, the smart features gradually appeared. As BlackBerry introduced emails and QWERTY keyboards, popular with business professionals, Sony Ericsson and Nokia brought cameras, music, and color screens. In 2004, Motorola wrapped the slim, stylish flip phone, but these were still feature phones, not full computers. The smartphone revolution actually began with the innovation of Steve Jobs, and here is where everything in the world of telecommunication changed. Apple's iPhone killed the keyboard and launched the touchscreen era. Of course, another tech giant like Google launched Android soon after, powering Samsung, HTC, and others. Competition drove innovation, bigger screens, better cameras, faster internet. It was a battle for relevance. It was a battle for significance. It was a battle for dominion over the tech space. Now, thanks to these innovations, phones are pocket-sized supercomputers with artificial intelligence, banking, shopping, GPS, video calls, gaming, social media, Bibles, photography, videography, studios, all in one. The impact of phones in our lives today is no longer just for calls, as it started in the 1800s, precisely 1876, with Alexander Graham Bell, but has quickly become one of the integral parts of human existence. They are tools for our life. Literally, our whole existence has been integrated into the use of our phones, that without a phone, in this generation, you are literally called old school or somewhat outdated. And so many companies introduce several features to make their product look different. But what I'm about to share with you changes everything. In many countries today, phones are the first access to the internet, banking, and education, the first things we see when we wake up from our bed is most likely our phones. Modern smartphones now integrate AI assistants like Siri, Google Assistant, ChatGPT, and Gemini. So, in summary of all this, the telephone changed communication forever in 1876. The mobile phone freed us from wires in 1973, but the iPhone reinvented everything, shaping modern life from 2007. Now, here is where the concept about iPhone 17 comes in. I see the excitement on social media, how that everyone is so moved by the recent release of iPhone 17. As excited as you are about the release of the iPhone 17, are you excited about Jesus? Do you spend time with your Creator as you spend with your devices? You see, phones have taken a great part of our lives today, so much so that we are far from those we are close to, and we are close to those we are far from. Today, people could be in one room, but they are divided by technology. What had to bring us together in community has rather created fragments and division among the hearts of people, that a family could be together, even in the same home, the same dining, trying to eat or have a meal, but they are separated by technology. Do you upgrade your knowledge of God as you upgrade your iPhone? You see, long before there was ever a device for communication, there was a telecommunication system, and that is a system of heaven, where God was able to call men even without internet, even without wires, without cables, without the installation of all the networks necessary and conducive for telecommunication. God had been calling people from every nation to every city to every home. God was able to access them. We see an example in 1 Samuel 3 where God calls a young man called Samuel. Samuel. That was 3 missed calls, and Eli tells him, hey, this is how to pick the call of God. And Samuel answers the call of God and takes that call, and that became the starting point of the revolution of Samuel's generation. Have you accepted the call of God today? God has been upgrading his systems. The Bible has had so many upgrades, many versions. Have you been able to upgrade your knowledge of God as you upgrade your iPhones? God is ultimately the first owner of telecommunication and the first caller throughout the Bible. And we have trends. We have the first release of this product, the next month, 3 months later, a new one comes up, 6 months later, another one comes up. The inquisitive nature of humans is what these companies leverage on to produce new product, which is very good. As a matter of fact, I'm using a device to stream this video, but I'm saying this to tell you that no level of innovation in technology will satisfy the yearning and the longing in your heart, because humans need something more than what can be explained, something more that no mundane thing can be able to ever satisfy. In Genesis 3 verse 9, we see how God calls Adam. God has been calling us from the very beginning to get deep with him in relationship. Now, if you're sincere to yourself, and if you won't get disappointed at this video at this point, would you say you connect with God as you should? Phones connect us to people, but prayer connects us to God and to the universe. Why Steve Jobs brought a revolution in our communication by making us to be able to connect with people, Jesus brought a revolution in our communication by helping us as the creations to connect with God, our Creator. How often do we ignore our phones? Most often we don't. But how often do we ignore God and His Word? How often do you read your Bible? How often do you go to church? How often do you sit and think about your walk with God? You know, there is an icon in your phone where you can put a block, you can delete some contact, and you can stop someone from calling you. The same thing happens in our spiritual life. Many of us have stopped God from calling us. He's calling, He's talking to you, but you keep blocking Him. You keep ending the call because you want to live your life. You want to satisfy your cravings at the expense of a divine call. We saw how in Matthew 19:22, the rich young man rejected the call of Jesus, and there were eternal consequences. In Romans 8 verse 30, those He predestined, He also called. Those He called, He justified. Those He justified, He also glorified. Have you missed the call from heaven? Have you upgraded your telecommunication system with heaven? Did you speak to Jesus today? As powerful as our phones are, they could only connect us with people, but Jesus and prayer connects us to God. Now, what I learned from the release of the iPhone 17 is this. Number one, there would always be a new technology to rival the old. And so, nothing you have today is a guarantee that you won't crave for something else tomorrow. But Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Number two, everything trends, but only Jesus reigns. Today, we are all excited about the iPhone 17, which is very good. But a few months from now, there'll be a new release, and we are going to be excited about it again. But Jesus has been the same yesterday, today, and He'll be forever. He doesn't trend, He reigns. If you're blessed by my video, I'm sure you must have subscribed by now. Please like and share so others could be blessed. And congrats to Apple for the innovative design of the iPhone 17. It's a technological wonder, and I believe that it's going to bring a revival in technology and a revolution on how we see phones. One more time, King speaking.